Separation and divorce can feel like a really confusing time. If you've been determined to try to repair your relationship, you can often bend over backwards to try to chase your partner, persuading them to come back to you. So many people fall into the trap of thinking that the more that they pursue, the more likely their partner is to return. But the reality is that chasing often has the opposite effect. It pushes your partner further away. In this video, we're going to explore why chasing doesn't work and what you can do instead to reattract your partner back and rebuild your relationship from a place of strength. The secret to mastering separation isn't what most people think. It's not about grand gestures. It's not about endless apologies or trying to logic your way back into their heart. No, the key is something much more counterintuitive. It's about shifting your mindset and approach in a way that creates the space for your partner to naturally gravitate back towards you, rather than you persuading them. So you may have heard me talk about the paradox of control before. The paradox of control is where we try to change external circumstances. We try to control the external, and oftentimes that actually gives us less control. That's when we fall for the paradox of control. But when we shift our focus to what we can control internally, that, ironically, is where we actually gain a more sense of control about the situation, because we're actually taking the time to change what we can control, which is ourselves, which gives us more influence on our circumstances and our situation. So by trying to persuade your partner to come back to you, we're trying to control situations and circumstances external to ourselves. Whereas if we change our focus to what we can control, which is ourselves, paradoxically, we actually end up having more influence over the situation. So picture this, you're sitting across from your partner, you're pouring your heart out, you're telling them all of these reasons why they should come back to you. You're trying to convince them to give you another chance, to give your relationship a second shot. You're pleading, you're promising to change, you're offering up every single solution you can to try to fix things. But the more that you talk, the more that your partner seems to withdraw. It's a common mistake that many people make during a separation in an attempt to win them back. But here's the thing, it pushes your partner further and further away, and it makes them feel suffocated by your desperation. When you're constantly pursuing and trying to persuade, your partner may feel like you're not respecting their space and not respecting their need for time to process things. Another pitfall that people fall for is trying to come up with some quick fix or some magical words, something that they found on YouTube that will suddenly and magically change your partner's mind. In fact, if you do try to come up with some magical perfect words, it actually makes things worse. The truth is, there are no shortcuts when it comes to rebuilding a relationship. It's a long-term process, and it requires a lot of patience, empathy, and willingness to do a lot of work. Trying to rush through reconciliation or skip the essential steps in the persuasion process, this will only backfire and it will erode trust further. So if there's nothing that you can do in the short term to persuade your partner, what can you do instead? What is the secret to persuading your partner to come back to you and to start seeing your changes and rebuilding that connection during a separation? You see, persuasion isn't about convincing or coercing your partner into seeing things your way. It's not about finding the perfect words or manipulating your partner into coming back. It's about creating a deep sense of understanding and acknowledgement, making them feel heard and validated on a really deep and profound level. Effective persuasion is an art that requires mastering, and it comes in 3 key stages. The first is emotional safety. The next is intellectual intimacy, and the third is goal synergy. So emotional safety is built through overcoming all of what we call the emotional discords. So emotional discords are the emotional challenges between yourself and your partner. And oftentimes when you're separated, your partner has built up a lot of emotional discords within themselves because they haven't been able to express them. There hasn't been the emotional safety. So these are built up, and they felt unable to talk about it because emotional safety is damaged. So the first step is overcoming these emotional discords. When you can start to tap into that emotional core and show genuine empathy for their experiences and their perspective, that's when you start to build a foundation of trust that opens the door to real change. And this is what we call emotional safety. When your partner feels safe and secure into expressing what they're going through and feel a deep sense of connection. And this emotional safety is the foundation of being able to rebuild and reconcile this relationship. So how do you identify those core issues and address them from a place of authentic compassion? All of this starts with active listening and validation. So when your partner expresses their frustrations or concerns, don't jump in to defend yourself or offer quick fixes. Instead, take a step back and really try to see things from their perspective. Taking the time to reflect back what you're hearing, convey your understanding of how they're feeling mentally, physically, and emotionally. So for instance, let's say your partner confides in you about feeling unappreciative or taken for granted in the relationship. Rather than getting defensive or dismissive, you might share a moment from your own life when you felt similarly overlooked in a work situation or in a friendship. And by relating to their experience on a personal level, you demonstrate that you truly get where they're coming from, that their feelings are valid, and you're validating them through sharing your own experience as well. Building this emotional safety is, I often say, is like a greenhouse. You can't just expect to plant a seed and see a full-grown tree the next day. You have to nurture the soil, you have to provide the right conditions, and you have to trust that with time and care and growth, it will start to happen naturally. So it's important to not get discouraged if after 2 conversations, it doesn't yield some immediate results. This is why it's so important to keep showing up as your best self, keep creating that safe space, keep crafting that greenhouse environment for your partner to be able to open up an honest dialogue and keep nurturing those seeds of understanding and empathy. So emotional safety is the first stage. But once you've started to heal these emotional discords and actually work your way through them, it's important to start looking at what we call the logical discords. And this is where intellectual intimacy comes into play. So intellectual intimacy is building the space to be able to problem solve on the logical aspects of these logical discords. So logical discords are the practicalities of the relationship. The day in, day out problem solving, financial, practical situations. And developing intellectual intimacy is actually being able to have the space and the respect between you both in order to start building this system together and building this relationship and being able to start overcoming these practical challenges within the relationship. And oftentimes what happens is that we try to solve the intellectual intimacy first. We try to go to the logical situation. So we start to try to persuade our partner that we can overcome these practical solutions. But these practical solutions for these logical discords are actually secondary, because they're almost always wrapped up in the emotional discords around them first. And then third, once you have built the emotional safety and start to develop the intellectual intimacy, then it becomes the goal synergy. This is where your partner feels able to express themselves freely. This is where you are building the mutual respect for overcoming these practical challenges. And then the goal synergy is where you start to actually dig deep into what you are both wanting and how to get there. This is the third stage of persuasion. This is where you're actually able to dig deep down into your individual needs, past the day-to-day things, and start to dig deep into what you both want long-term and how to get there. This is what we call goal synergy. And these are the three stages of persuasion. And this takes a long time. And when it comes to building emotional safety, intellectual intimacy, and goal synergy, there's only so much detail that I can dive into in a YouTube video. So if you do want to deeper dive into that, then join us on the free Relationship Bootcamp, where you'll learn tools and skills to start turning your relationship around. Click on the link in the description to get started. So by mastering this art of effective persuasion through emotional safety, intellectual intimacy, and goal synergy, you're laying the groundwork for a long-term, strong, more resilient relationship in the long run. So how do you walk through these three steps of persuasion? So when it comes to reattracting your partner during a separation, there is a secret weapon that's often overlooked, and that is your mindset. It's not just about what you say or what you do, but it's how you think and you feel that makes all the difference. Your mindset is the soil that your relationship grows in. If it's toxic and negative, nothing healthy can flourish. But if you cultivate a positive, empathetic mindset, you create these conditions for real change and connection to start taking root. So how do you shift your mindset in a way that supports your relationship and starts to take these steps forward through persuasion? One key concept is what I call emotional alchemy, which is the ability to transform negative experiences into positive growth opportunities. So during the separation, your partner is feeling frustration, hurt, worried. They're trying to figure themselves out. And it can be very easy to get defensive or shut down or jump in with all of these logical fixes. But it's important to start training yourself to see these moments of frustration, of worry, of gaslighting, of stonewalling that your partner is feeling right now, seeing these moments as chances to deepen understanding and deepen compassion into your partner. And this is where it starts to change the very fabric of your interactions. Let's say your partner says that they feel like that you never made time for them. Instead of getting angry or making excuses or trying to justify yourself, you can pause and you can reflect on how that must have felt for them. Rather than jumping in and saying, I did make time for you. Here's why you shouldn't feel that way. Flip the switch and take the time to reflect on how they must be feeling right now. Maybe share a time when you felt neglected by a friend who was always too busy to hang out. By relating to their experience and showing genuine empathy and understanding on how they must be feeling, by relating to how they are feeling right now, this is showing genuine empathy. And this turns it from a potential conflict into actually a moment of connection and a moment of building and one step closer to reconciliation. But emotional alchemy isn't just about reacting to your partner's feelings. It's also about proactively seeking to understand them on a deeper level. So if you do want to deeper dive into that, then I will leave you with this video right here. I'll see you over there.